All right, guys. So this was on Netflix. Waz, you had never seen it?
I'd never seen it. I was home. My lady was over here. Generally, the only movies that we can watch together are rom-coms or, basically like erotic thrillers or whatever.
Yeah.
And so I see Al Pacino, so I'm interested, and I read the description of the movie, and I'm like, yeah, this has to happen. And so I popped this thing in, and I have to say, I was absolutely blown away.
It's a classic. CR, it's been trending. I mean, we're taping this on a Friday, but it was in the top 3 or 4 trending movies on Netflix for a week. This is a classic, really, really good late 80s, early 90s movies. And now it's been 30 plus years and it kind of slips through the cracks. I hadn't even seen it on the cable channels in a couple years, but I love this movie. I know you do too.
Yeah, I love this movie. This is pure Richard Price right here, based loosely on one of his early novels. And Richard Price then went on to become like one of the great screenwriters in Hollywood, did Color of Money, which we've done on this pod. He wrote for The Wire. He did The Night Of. And this is just loose talk, electric, coked out, drunken Pacino. Everybody is talking shit. Cops are dirty. The women are fast. It's everything I want in a New York cop movie.
It's heaven.
I want to get to Pacino in a second. I want to talk about this weird classification of a movie that, it ties back to the 40s and 50s, but then Body Heat brought it back, which we've done on the Rewatchables. It's the people that fall in love, and one of the two people might be a murderer and actually might want to kill the other person. And it's this, do they or don't they? Does she or doesn't she? Does he or... So Jagged Edge was another great one like this with Jeff Bridges and Glenn Close. She's defending him in a murder trial. Was he the killer? No, he couldn't be. He's so handsome. He's such a great guy. I shouldn't fall for him. Oh no, I'm falling for him. Black Widow was another one, even though it was Deborah Winger and Teresa Russell, they never ended up really together, but they had some sort of weird sexual chemistry thing going. And it was like, is she the bad person? Is she not? Waz, why did they stop making movies like this? Where I have to decide, is this person who's falling in love with a character that I like, are they actually a murderer or not? This wins every time.
Well, when we're prosecuting sexual politics now, we concentrate on the politics and not the sex. And so, that Netflix movie that just came out where the chick and the dude work at the same job and she gets a better job.
Yeah.
Right. They spend basically most of that movie adjudicating how dudes feel about women ascending in the workplace. Whereas this movie, like, there is that sort of, this guy has fucked up views about women and their place in a relationship. But this movie concentrates on their sexual chemistry and who has the sexual upper hand, who's dictating the terms of the relationship. They don't really care about this guy's understanding of a woman's quote unquote place in a relationship. And I think nowadays people feel the need to prosecute that other question. Whereas what I'm more interested in is why Al Pacino wants to fuck a serial killer. like, to me, that's the more interesting question.
Because the action is the juice. Come on, that's why.
Well, Adrian Lyne did this too, right? He did this in 9.5 Weeks. Was another one with Mickey Rourke and Kim Basinger, where it's like, this relationship is bad, but I can't resist this guy. I can't stay away. This was a theme. This is Basic Instinct, right? Which comes after this movie, but in 1991, where he's Michael Douglas's character. We did this on the Rewatchables too. He's trying to chase down this murder suspect and he becomes enchanted by Sharon Stone, but she's probably the murderer. And he's like, you know what? Can't resist. I shouldn't do this, but the heart wants what the heart wants. We don't have the heart wants what the heart wants movies as much anymore, CR. I guess they tried to do it with Saltburn, and it was one of the worst movies I've seen in a while.
I think that there's something to be said for the vulnerability people feel in the early part of a relationship, where you've got all that electricity running through your veins because you're with a new person and because you're feeling each other out in probably more ways than one. But there is that little bit of a mystery to them where you're like, who really is this person? Have I met their friends? Have I met their folks?
What's
Have
their
I been to
baggage?
Like, I mean, and I think that especially in a pre-internet dating world where a lot of it was either based on like pickup lines or as in this film, like these sort of Lonely Hearts letters or advertisements in the back of the Village Voice or an alt weekly or whatever. Like you basically were like rolling the dice when you were dating, you know what I mean? And it wasn't like you could find and look at their Instagram and see where they had been and see who they were hanging out with. It was just like one day Ellen Barkin might show up at a restaurant and you were like, this is the best thing that's ever happened to me until you think she might be a serial killer. And so
why is she wearing Tito Jackson's jacket? I don't understand that part, but she's hot.
Well, we know why she's wearing that jacket, but also the cool thing about this movie is how they set up Al Pacino's life in the sense that he's obviously of a certain age at this point. His dad is a widow and is extremely lonely, and he's like, I'm divorced. I'm already about to be cooked at my job, so I'm about to lose the purpose in that. And he's kind of just moping around, right?
Yeah.
He's feeling sorry for himself, and then he meets this woman, and he's back. He's back alive. He's back, and he's ready. He's ready to throw everything away for this. And it's just incredible to watch it play out throughout the course of the movie.
Well, I told you guys, this is a big movie for me. My best friend from high school, Jeff Gallo, I think we might have even seen this in the theater, and we've been joking about it for 34 years.
Just love you and Gallo watching this.
Just the combo of Pacino and Ellen Barkin, just one of the weirdest couples we've ever had on screen in any movie where the movie was actually good and successful. But the sex scene brought us endless delight. We thought it was one of the funniest things. The way she kind of prowls around like she's a tiger that got let out of the cage when she grabs him from behind, when she's like, what are you looking for, Frank? What are you looking for? And he's like, oh, you're killing me. Oh. And we thought, oh, you're killing me. I'm telling you, we got 3+ decades out of somebody like trying to get some sort of sexually charged reaction out of Pacino. Our history with Pacino, not exactly like American Gigolo in his movies, right? It's always like sex is always, really Apollonia is the only time you felt like he really wanted to jump.
And we see how that worked out, yeah.
Right, and she got blown up in a car. And this was, Ellen Barkin was just like, all right, what's my challenge? I got Pacino with his crazy hair. He reeks of cigarettes, hasn't showered in 5 days. I'm going to make it seem like this is the most attractive guy I've ever laid my hands on. And she does it. Like, she's unbelievable. And they really do have chemistry, but Pacino's gross. Dude. I mean, he's just like, he's just disgusting.
I was kind of shocked watching it the last couple of times. I guess because I'm older or whatever, but when I saw it when I was a kid, I just mostly looked at it as an erotic thriller. It's like a portrait of addiction in a big time way. I mean, he's in the bag for most of this movie, and a lot of his behavior, I actually really respect the way they tell the story in the sense that there are several scenes that are played the way they're played because he's drunk, you know? So like when he goes to her and he's going to ask her to move in with him, and they go to the nice restaurant and he's getting boxed like right as soon as they sit down, that completely changes the way the story is being told. I thought it was like a pretty honest depiction of alcoholism and obviously a guy having a midlife crisis.
Yeah, and it's funny to hear you say that Pacino doesn't have a history in the movies of being a sort of sexual being, if you will, because in this movie, he is fucking horny, okay? Like, the way he's looking at Ellen Barkin is how I look at the double cheeseburger at McDonald's. Like, he is ready at 3 a.m, mind you. Okay.
Yeah.
Like, he is so ready to devour this woman and let her do anything to his life. Just his willingness to submit to what's happening is so crazy when you see him in these other contexts throughout the movie, right? Like, you know, I know we're going to talk about the fake Yankee meetup and, you know, how he's treating the dude is his partner or just his coworker who is now fucking his wife. And like, the way he is throughout the rest of the movie is so divorced from every single scene of him and Ellen Barkin. It's like, man, to hear you guys say like Al Pacino's never been sexual on screen, like he is so sexed up in this movie.
Yeah.
It's really though, it's like Frankie and Johnny is like the most purely romantic movie he's made, right, Bill?
Do you think that movie works, Chris? Because I did not think it worked.
But I'm just saying, like, even in the terms of the way that he's like presented, like in all the gangster movies he's in, like Carlito's Way and Scarface and all those movies, it's like his relationship with the woman is either distressed or he's controlling her or like she's his exit from the criminal life. But it's never like Al Pacino is, I mean, I guess author. I'm trying to think of like some of the other ones that he's done, but like,
well, we did Injustice for All, remember? And he has that whole courtship scene in the kitchen eating Chinese food with Christine Lottie.
Yes.
And we were like, this is disgusting. Al Pacino eating Chinese food is not what's going to get me horny.
Do you recognize like something about like his live wire kind of like sensitivity? Like he is, I can see why like it would, Barkin, if she was speed dating all these guys, would be like, you know what? This one's different. Like this guy's a little different. Maybe he smells like he's drank a bottle of Dewar's before he came here, but he's still different, and I'm into it.
Well, he's dated a lot of actresses over the years. I mean, he had like a 20-year on and off relationship with Diane Keaton, and she talked about it. She did an autobiography. I read this Pacino New Yorker profile from 2014 about him, and there's a lot of Diane Keaton stuff in it, and she was just like, I just could never get him. Like he was in my life this whole time and I could never totally figure him out. And he had those eyes and he'd look away and you're like, is he thinking about me? And she had this whole thing where she was still like under his spell. And if you see like Pacino's like, it's like 5'7". He's got the yellow cigarette teeth. He's got the crazy hair.
So
and it's like,
short in this movie.
Women could not resist him forever. So it was always like in the movies, they always figured out how to play that and they'll pull it off. I mean, most of the time in movies, we always catch him in relationships that have already stopped working, like in Heat, you know, like Scarface, we really only see the part after it stops working with him and Michelle Pfeiffer's character. But for the most part, he's not a stable relationship actor, Chris.
No. It's not like he's not Paul Rudd. You know?
No. It's not like him and Leslie Mann are having issues because they both turned 40. But
he plays too much fantasy baseball. That's not what's happening here.
Yeah.
So I sent you guys that clip of Siskel and Ebert on their TV show, sort of giving their review of this movie. They absolutely love the freaking movie, if not the ending, which I'm sure we'll get into. But it's funny to hear them say like, "Yo, it's been a decade of crap." Because for me, you know, I'm 36 years old. I grew up in New York City in like, you know, the middle of the hip hop boom. Like Scarface is so definitional to our growing up. The movie, the quotes, the immigrant story, the American dream chasing. It's so integral to us. So it's so interesting to hear them dismiss shit like that from the 80s, right? Like just out of hand, like that was crap. Whereas to me, that's like in my mind's eye when I'm thinking of Al Pacino, more so than Michael Corleone or you know the detective from Heat. I'm thinking about Scarface. So when I see him in this movie, I'm just like, this is such a different mold of person than Tony Montana in this movie, and the fact that he can pull off those two poles is incredible to me.
Well, this is a really important point. We have to hit the Pacino 80s because that's a huge piece of this movie because he has one of the great 70s, one of the great decades anyone's had. And we covered it in Injustice for All and some of the other 70s ones. But in the 80s, Cruising, which Chris and I did for the Rewatchables, that's 1980.
Which is kind of a sort of sister movie to this.
Yeah, and he's not great in it, right? And I think even he admits, like, maybe not the best. Chris and I love it. But it was, you know, that movie did not catch fire.
William Friedkin certainly admits that he was not great at it. Yeah.
William Friedkin took some shots. Then he does Author, which didn't do well. Then he did Scarface, which had this belated, like super belated, became this iconic film. But it really wasn't the first 5 years. I think it was critically pretty much dismissed. People were super disappointed in De Palma and him. And oh my God, I thought this was going to be amazing. And it's not. And then it took a while. But then the one that killed him was this movie called Revolution in 1985, which is a great Google deep dive for anybody out there. Just read 20 minutes about this movie. Everything goes wrong. Like they don't know. Chris, have you seen it?
I have not seen Revolution.
It's one of those movies, they're trying to do two things at once. They pull off neither. Pacino gets pneumonia for the first 2 months of the filming, so he's like a shell of himself, and the movie bombs. And Pacino said, well, afterwards, he said, you learn so much from it. It was such a disorienting experience. They put half a film out. I was appalled and shocked. I didn't know what to do. It was that single film that took the rug out from under me. I lost interest for a while. He didn't do a movie for 4 years. And this is like Pacino, De Niro. These are the two biggest actors, or the two best actors we had in the 80s?
Pacino, De Niro, Hoffman was the sort of troika.
Right, so that's the three.
And meanwhile, Hoffman's like rattling off Tootsie and stuff, so yeah.
And De Niro is still acting, but Pacino, this is like, I don't know, Jokic just disappearing until 2027. Right. So he moved to Palisades, New York with Diane Keaton. He stopped making movies. He appeared in some plays. He did a play called National Anthem in New Haven. He did a Julius Caesar play where he played Mark Antony. And then he did this whole project called The Local Stigmatic, which was a one-act play. And he says now, or he said in 2014, this is probably the best period of my adult life. It was as close to egoless as I've ever been. And just doesn't work for 4 years. And finally, Keaton was the one who's like, dude, like you're out of money. You're out of money. Like you're one of the best actors in the world. What are you doing? And started hitting him over the head with this Sea of Love script. Chris, can you think of any other situation ever like this where someone who is this high up the ladder and anything just said, I'm out? I guess it happens in music, right?
The closest thing that we have to it, and it's way more elective, is Daniel Day-Lewis. So DDL is the one who routinely takes years and years between roles, has a kind of soft retirement going on, which I guess is sticking, although he's like, every once in a while you'll see him in paparazzi photos, but he's the only like great actor where you're like, oh, I guess you're just like but it sounds like Pacino walked away from movies because he had such a bad experience on Revolution that he needed to go and put himself back together. It doesn't really feel like movie jail happens like this anymore. It's like somebody might be a star and then they can just go and sort of slide into doing more supporting roles if they feel like they're not box office gold anymore. But the idea of just being like exiled from the industry, and who knows like what other things were happening in Pacino's life at the time, but that does seem pretty rare.
He's pretty famous for movies he didn't do. Like I think he turned down Star Wars. I think he turned down Fatal Attraction. Like if you go through the list of movies Al Pacino's turned down, they're like 10 blockbusters. So what were you going to say, Wes?
No, I love the point in his career that this movie catches him in, to understand that he's just coming back from a hiatus, and to know that Scent of a Woman turn is kind of right around the corner.
Yeah. Right, it's looming.
To catch him before that, where he's not yelling at everybody in every single scene in this movie, is pretty cool.
So the part I remember, because I was in college when this movie came out, was it was a big deal that Pacino was coming back with a movie that we kind of wanted to see. Like the commercial, the trailer came out, and it's like, oh, not only is Pacino back, this movie looks good. And you even see like Ebert in Ebert's review, he said, for Pacino, Sea of Love is a reminder of the strong presence he established in street roles in the 1970s before he drifted away into unfocused stardom in too many softer roles. This time he seemed sharp, edgy, complicated, and authentic. And that was the feeling in 1989. It was like, I miss this guy. This guy is one of the most important actors of my life. Like I'm just kind of glad he's back. By 1989, also I feel like Scarface
had started to pop.
Had starting to come.
Well,
he was on cable a lot.
To Waz's point, it's like an iconic cultural touchstone.
It was happening.
And it's really interesting to hear Waz say that, because I think that sometimes like when we go through people's careers, we do it this sort of like 1, then 2, then 3, then 4. But when you have somebody who's younger, like Waz is 10 years younger than us, 15 years younger than us, like it's going to go 1, then 5, then 7, then 2, because he's jumping around the person's filmography, and it's like, what's become more significant? Like for I think the person that I've kind of grown up with in a lot of ways, he's older than I am, but for his movies at least, has been like Daniel Day-Lewis. So like, to me, like My Left Foot and In the Name of the Father loom pretty big, because like I had never really seen performances like that. I felt like when I saw them, even though most people would be like, it's There Will Be Blood and Phantom Thread and Lincoln are kind of like these later period sort of huge performances in people's imagination, but he was like a brilliant young actor growing up for me.
I mean, you got to figure I was born in 87. So by the time I become a sentient being at like 8 years old, that's 1995. Scarface is like firmly entrenched in everything I know
every
pop
single
culture-wise.
dorm room poster, every
Period.
time.
Everybody knows the quotes. Like it's everywhere.
It's basically the text of rap at the time. Yeah.
Yes.
By the time I got to college, that had happened. So late 80s, Scarface. And I think part of it was just on cable a lot. And it was a movie that the first time you saw it, there's so much going on. It's so fucking crazy. The last 20 minutes is so absolutely insane that you kind of leave the theater like, what did I just see? And he's so over the top in his performance. But then as you start jumping into different pieces of it, then it starts clicking. So I feel like that combined with Sea of Love seemed like it was good. And then by this time there were rumors Godfather 3 was actually happening and they were going to film it. And all of a sudden it was like, Pacino's back.
Yeah.
Missed him. And at the same time, De Niro just had Midnight Run and De Niro's about to go on his amazing run. And this is when De Niro versus Pacino went to a whole other level as, all right, who you got? Who's your guy? Are you a De Niro guy or a Pacino guy? Which was things we actually argued about in bars.
He does something really smart where he takes this time off and whether or not it was elective or like it was decided for him. And he kind of recreates the Al Pacino persona. Because when you think about Al Pacino's early movies and Dog Day and especially Serpico where he's playing a New York cop and he's the rookie of the year. He's the guy who sees like with moral clarity, like the corruption of the New York Police Department. He's like the young guy. And then to jump ahead to 89 and he's playing Frank and he's like, I got my 20. I don't give a shit. All I want to do is get drunk. Like, and everybody's like, I'm going to retire and open a hotel. He's like, I'm nothing without this job. It's a really wise kind of like update on the character. And I think it kind of it informs a lot of his 90s decisions in a lot of ways.
Well, as I wrote down, is this the smokiest, smelliest, and drunkest Pacino has ever been in a movie?
Dude, so we're going to get into this.
You could feel the cigarettes kind of coming off him during this movie.
So everybody on this call at one time or another was a smoker.
Yeah.
Like a pretty active cigarette smoker. I've never smoked a cigarette in my bed ever in my life. I've never done that. And I wanted to ask you guys about this because that scene where he calls his ex-wife and he's so cooked. He is absolutely done, drunk and feeling sorry for himself. He's smoking a cigarette in his bed.
Yeah.
That's a level of smoking that might be past shower smoking.
It's closer to Don Draper than it is to anything else where it's like you just have the ashtray right on the nightstand so that you can put it on your chest while you're smoking.
Chest.
Yeah.
I dated one girl who did it, and I always thought it was like the most amazing thing I'd ever seen. Like that anybody would be like, you couldn't even just go in the other room to do this. It was like you just have to roll over and have
There
one.
are layers of smoking from our era where it was like, first you would have a cigarette outside. Then maybe like the big thing for me was I started dating a girl who smoked inside. So we would just sit
freshman
in her
year of
living
college,
room and
three
smoke.
of us smoked in the suite indoors.
Right,
and
you
then
just didn't care.
then there's smoking in the bedroom, which is another level. And then smoking in bed, which is literally the like, don't smoke in bed. That's how you burn your house down. Is like when that's the final boss of smoking.
Is bed worse than smoking as you're eating dinner? Because that was what my mom always says her dad did. She said he would be eating dinner with a cigarette. And I was like, wait, he was smoking as he was eating? And she was like, yeah, he smoked 5 packs a day. You don't really slow down when you're at 5 packs a day.
I would never do that just because it would ruin the pleasure of lighting up as soon as you were done dinner.
Right.
Exactly. So smoking obviously suppresses your appetite a lot. A lot of times the cigarette after the meal is your reward for actually eating something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, all right, let me go smoke a butt real quick.
Ellen Barkin, one of the great Google searches of any actress with some of the interviews she's given over the years. She, you know, had that Super 70s Sports Twitter account. Every once in a while, he does the Kelly Leak tweet where he's like, batted 900, 50 home runs, 0 fucks given, Kelly Leak. Ellen Barkin, I think, is the all-time 0 fucks given actress. She doesn't care. She'll talk shit about movies she made. She'll talk shit about people she worked with. It's incredibly entertaining to read up on all the stuff she's done. But one of her quotes was, if you're a man like Nick Nolte, Al Pacino, and Robert De Niro, that means deeply talented and deeply committed. If you're a woman, it means you're difficult. And Deborah Winger has quotes like this too.
Yeah.
It's the quote unquote difficult actress. They always say this. And it's a great point. Why do they get the bad rap? But we have like all these crazy actors. We're like, oh yeah, he's a little out there. Why is that, CR?
And meanwhile, like Ellen Barkin and Deborah Winger, a lot of like what you're referring to is like, they show up on set and like their male director is like, guess what? I forgot to mention it's a nude scene today, you know, or
yeah,
it's like
let me pull off your merkin.
Yeah, right. With Ellen Barkin's case, it's definitely unfair. It's like we lionize like the difficult men, and then if it's a actress who's like, hey, I have a couple of issues with the way the story is being told, it's like this is a pain in the ass, you know.
What's your Ellen Barkin relationship?
My relationship honestly starts in Ocean's 13. I don't have a relationship with her. Same. Thank you, Craig.
Horlbeck from the Peanut Gallery.
and by the way, when I interacted with her in Ocean's 13, I was quite intrigued. I was like, oh, I like this older white sage. I'm into this. I like this a lot. And so that, and in more recent years, her Twitter account, she's a pretty active member of the resistance, if you catch my drift, on Twitter. And so that's kind of been, I never felt the need to be like, oh, I need to do a deep dive on this woman's previous work, because she never seemed like somebody who was that relevant in the culture, right? It just didn't feel that way anyway. But of course, in Oceans, she's incredibly alluring and incredible, like in the way that, a sort of knowing older, sexual woman might be. And so for me, that was my introduction to her. Is this your introduction to her, Bill?
No. Let's do Diner, dog. Come on.
It starts Diner. It starts Diner, and then Eddie and the Cruisers the next year, which you cannot stream because I actually wanted to do this as a one for us with CR, Eddie and the Cruisers Rewatchables. Not available, like literally nowhere. It's not even on YouTube. It's just all copies are gone. But those were my first two things with her. She was in Harry and Son. The big one for her was The Big Easy.
The Big Easy is...
That was a star-making performance. Her and Dennis Quaid, they're in New Orleans. It's an all-time New Orleans movie. And it really seems like they're fucking in the love scenes. Like they're just going at it. And it was like, whoa, this is like somebody I haven't seen before, right? You remember that, Chris?
I certainly remember The Big Easy. I certainly remember their electric chemistry. The introductory shot of Ellen Barkin in this movie where, he's doing the speed dating run, and then she's the third date, or she sits down, and they cut to her face, which is one of the most distinctive, beautiful faces, I think, in like movie history. Yeah. It's just like, it's real. Like I would throw my life away for this, like right now. And
no question.
It's so, can you imagine it's like a lightning bolt hits. She blows Pacino completely off the screen. It's like nobody's watching Al Pacino in that scene. She is so amazing. She's just a, What a amazing, like I keep thinking about like her face. Like her face is just one of those like, what an incredibly beautiful person that also like completely understands the instrument that she's playing and can like manipulate people.
But was also like attainably attractive. Sure. She wasn't like Kelly Preston attractive. Right. She was like, oh, this is somebody like, I feel like if I was talking to her at a bar at 11 o'clock at night, I might have a chance.
This is always my favorite part.
Bill's like, she's not Playmate of the Year.
At 3 a.m.
Yeah. It's like I'm smoking out the window of somebody's apartment and she comes over and asks for a land.
And like, Ellen Barkin comes over to Bill Simmons.
I know, I just saw her in the movie. I might have a chance.
And Bill's like, I don't know if I ever told you about this, but I have kind of a basketball pyramid thing going on.
let me just say this, Bill.
Woz knows what I mean.
I know exactly what you mean. However, the woman who shows up to this, the woman who shows up to this date is out of our league. Okay, the red jacket. Because the movie's trying to explain to us like, want us to think that this is the devil, y'all. This is the Garden of Eden. This is the forbidden fruit. This is the devil. She got the red jacket, the red lipstick, and most importantly, she's got this like devilish half smirk where she's just like, you have no idea what's about to happen to your life, motherfucker.
Yeah.
And it's perfect.
I guess the eye contact thing was another great thing for her. She just locks in on her co-star.
Yeah.
She pulls more out of Pacino in this movie than I think any other actress has pulled out. Like, you really feel like he wants to jump her bones.
Immediately.
It's weird because after this, and I think this movie made her a legitimate star. And then it was like, you look at everything after and it's not great. And I don't know how much like her big movie 2 years later was called Switch, where it was a man trapped in a woman's body.
Is that a Blake Edwards movie?
Yeah,
it's big. Yeah.
And then she was in This Boy's Life with Leo and De Niro, and she's great in that. And that's a really good movie, but it wasn't like a monster hit. And then it just, you just kind of, especially if you're in your early 40s as an actress, you just kind of get run over by the one who's 5 years younger, and that was it. And all of a sudden she wasn't a leading actress anymore. But I always thought, it's amazing to me she never found her stride in like a mid-90s HBO or maybe early Showtime, like some sort of drama, something like that. I think she found some TNT show later, but I always liked her. To me, she's like a one-on-one. I don't even know who you would
She's the
compare her to.
matriarch on Animal Kingdom.
I feel like you're an Animal Kingdom guy, CR. Am I making that up?
I like the early seasons.
course
I
he
didn't
is.
stick with it, but I enjoyed the early stuff. Yeah. The early stuff.
I remember when I told Chris that I played tennis with Sean Hattasey. He was so impressed. Being an Animal Kingdom guy. The cast in this movie is another reason that it's so much fun just to see it pop up, where you got Richard Jenkins, you get John Goodman, either pre-Roseanne or right as Roseanne started. Nobody really knew who he was at that point. Michael Rooker coming off Henry Portrait of the Serial Killer, which I was one of only 5 people who saw. Your guy, Paul Calderone.
Oh my
Chris.
God.
And then the one and only John Spencer. It's just a cast of, back then they were those
Murderers
guys.
Row.
And then they all became
and
names.
one scene for Sam Jackson.
Yeah. Little Sam Jackson during the Sam Jackson when he was in 17 movies a year with like 5
Coming
lines.
to America, all that. Yeah.
Just kept popping in. Directed by Harold Becker. CR mentioned that it was written by Richard Price. $19 million budget, made $110.9 million. Could we have squeezed this into, how much money did that movie make month? Or no, Chris? 110.9. It's not like jaw-dropping, but it's a lot.
I think I heard you saying that you might want to include a couple more movies in this theme. I think it would work, especially if you think about how when you watch this movie, it's way more of a fucked up romance movie than it is a cop movie. Like
No
the
question.
cop movie is basically kicked to the last 20 minutes.
So our guy Roger Ebert, 3 stars. He said, what impressed me most in the film was the personal chemistry between Pacino and Barkin. There can be little doubt at this point that Barkin is one of the most intense and passionately convincing actresses now at work in American movies. Her performance in The Big Easy was Oscar caliber. And again, this time she seems to cross some kind of acting threshold. And then he writes, when she roughly embraces Pacino and then stalks around the room like a tigress in heat before returning to her quarry, there's an energy that almost derails the movie. Raj, have a glass of water.
Hose yourself down.
Jeez, Raj.
Dude.
Put the
He
Viagra
needed
down.
a cigarette after this movie.
Yeah,
My
he's
Lord.
smoking out
Fire
the window.
hydrant, for God's sake.
My God, Raj, big Barkin guy.
It's a hot day in Chicago.
All right, most rewatchable scene. Obviously, have to start with tricking the Yankee fan criminals
So
into a
good.
Yankee hang. Why
Have you
is this-
have you done this to Jacko? Be honest.
I wish somebody would. I wish somebody would get all these people together and then arrest all of them. Wow, no scene more in your wheelhouse than this.
It's just so good, especially just because the Yankee component of it in New York, I don't think people understand that, like, for both I happen to be a Mets fan. Obviously, there's a lot of devotion for the Mets, but the Yankee devotion, arrogance, it's hard to like explain, man. Like, so the idea that they were offering a Yankee meet and greet to these convicts, 1,000% they're going to show up. Like, this isn't even a question. They're showing up to this thing. So I buy the premise off the rip.
Irrational confidence. Okay. Fast forward to next rewatchable scene. Honestly, the movie takes a little bit to get going.
It does.
And then as soon as Frank has a couple, as we come up with the dating plan scheme where they decide, hey, something's going on here with these ads. We should put an ad that sounds like the ones that these guys have responded to. We'll pull a whole sting and we'll see if we can get this. And our guy Frank, played by Pacino, goes on a couple dates, including the lady with the big wig.
Yeah.
He's like, we'll call you. And she reads through it and she's like, no, you won't. Gives him the sad
I love
eyes.
that scene.
The lady who comes in and says, you've got cop eyes.
He gets pegged for cop eyes a couple of times.
You're a printer. I've got a dick. Who do you know has cop eyes, Chris? Anybody?
Fantasy.
Does Fantasy have cop eyes? I think he does.
That's messed up. That's messed up.
And then Barkin comes in with a red jacket. You're just not my type. I believe in animal attraction. I believe in love at first sight. I believe in this.
And she snaps in his face.
Finger. You don't got it.
It's such a Pacino move too. It's like doing a crossover on Kyrie. It's just like you're going right back at him.
Yeah, she goes right at him. You're right. Next one, Frank running into Ellen Barkin again. And
as he slowly is trying to decide which pear to buy at a convenience store.
Well, then,
it's so funny. It's like, when has Frank ever had a piece of fruit?
Right. It's going to be his first strawberry. But then it's on. The attraction's on. They're going to go on a date. He calls Goodman, and Goodman does the, Frankie, she's a fucking suspect. Just walk away. Great bar scene. I've done some desperate, foolish things at 3 a.m. Just Pacino in a bar late at night. Good things are going to happen, Waz. Whether he's talking to a girl, whether he's trying to solve a crime, you feel like you're in safe hands. The bar, the lighting's going a little down. It's getting a little dimmer. There's some cheesy
the way he
song
orders
on.
his doers, I'm just like, this is a guy who has been here 5 days a week the last 5 years.
There's laying your bills on the bar and being like, this is how much I'm drinking. And then there's the guy who comes in and throws his bills on the bar and is like, that's how much I'm drinking. And that's a different level.
I've always wanted to, it's never happened to me, even in my biggest drinking days, of the going to the bar, ordering a shot, throwing it down, putting it down, and then the guy just immediately pours another one. There's some sort of vibe you have to be giving that it's like, I'm definitely a 2-for-1 special now.
It also helps if it's the Vietnam War era, but yes.
Yeah, you're right. Good point. Next rewatchable scene, the sex scene, is maybe the funniest sex scene we've ever had. She's got a startup pistol in her purse. He does he throws her in the closet because he doesn't trust her. He does the feel my heart, it's like a drum.
Beating like a drum, baby.
Blames the city. The city's what it does to people. And then she just starts mauling him. And he's still oh, Jesus. Oh.
And that's like the inversion, the sexual inversion that happens where she's like got him up against the wall.
Right.
She's patting him down like a cop.
Yes.
And then she mounts him.
Yes, that's what it was. Her basically establishing her dominance over him because she comes out the bathroom ready to have a nice intimate moment.
She's got her robe on,
right.
Or
everything.
His
She's being, a lady or whatever, and he roughhouses her because he's so scared that he's fucking a serial killer. And so she's like, all right, I got something for that ass. I'm going to make you feel how I felt just moments ago. Only she was scared.
Yeah.
Al Pacino was loving it. He was absolutely obsessed.
Oh, you're
with
killing
it.
me. Then she says in the bed the next morning, when she's like ready for round 16, and he's like, I'm done. I'm tapped out, man.
Yeah.
You've murdered me.
I need to be airlifted out of this
Lifted
bed.
to the standing position.
And she says, I always used to think I lived for love. I mean, what else is there? Food? We used to joke a long time ago that this would have been the funniest high school yearbook quote you could have come up with. Just quoting Ellen Barkin, just putting that in your high school yearbook for the rest of eternity. This 5 minutes is the fucking hilarious. It just kills me. The shoe store scene I have down.
With the two Goombas?
The two Goombas come in.
I love this scene so much. It's also like such a throwback to a time when like you could have a job managing a shoe store that sold like 12 pairs of shoes. And
Right.
like, that's just like on Madison Avenue, and it's like work and like now
And y'all
it's
can
just,
pay y'all rent with that.
Yeah,
And pay employees. Yeah.
That's when Pacino snaps and goes in a Scent of a Woman mode. A brief preview of what's to come 4 years ago. He's like, I'm
gets
everybody's daddy.
He gets made. Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, the Goomba who hawks a loogie in the freaking shoe store, like,
Disgusting.
bruh, what?
Yeah. Big loogie too, not like a small loogie.
Bruh.
More rewatchable. Pacino's apology in the kitchen when he becomes soft-spoken. I fucked up, Al Pacino. I can't even sleep in my own bed unless you're in it. And then he sees the ads on the fridge.
Yeah.
Because, who doesn't keep their
Who doesn't print out
romantic ads on the
singles ads
fridge?
and
Yeah.
put them next to their kids' artwork?
Yeah, who doesn't just put up 8 or 9 of those? I had that in Picking Hits. Might as well talk about it now. Just keep all of them up. Who's going to notice or think that's weird at all? And then he does the Pacino face. Then we have Helen playing him Sea of Love. That's like, oh wait, she is the killer. This is one of those, the first time you see it.
Isn't she?
So Waz, at this point, you think she's the killer?
I pretty much think she's the killer the whole way. There are moments that I have my doubts. Like, I'm like, oh shit, the mom is legitimate. Oh shit, look how cute that baby is. Oh shit, she really has a job and is like pretty good at it and like seems like a well-adjusted human being. There are moments of doubt, but the movie set me up. I'm like, there's no way a woman this good at sex is not a killer. you know, like the movie sets me up to think that she's a killer the whole time. For me personally watching it, I'm like, yeah, she's definitely the one. And also, movie, like I come into it with my own biases, right? Like I've already seen Basic Instinct. I've already seen, all these
Fatal
other movies
Attraction.
where Fatal Attraction, where the femme fatale is literally, a killer. And so I'm carrying those biases throughout this movie, where this movie's trying to tell us like, yo, guys, like Al Pacino's just a sicko. The fact that he's treating his job this way for a piece of pussy is like fucking nuts. But the movie is trying very desperately when you watch it over to be like, she's a normal, nice lady who's just really good at sex.
Well, then we have 2 more scenes. The big fight scene with Michael Rooker. I am such a huge fan of the throwing the bad guy out the window and having them fall to their death. When has it not been awesome? It's always good.
Never fails.
Always good. And then I really love the final scene. And it was interesting doing the research of this movie because anytime I watch this on cable, it always seemed accidental that Pacino got bumped by somebody walking as he's in the middle of this dramatic moment. And he just gets sideswiped like Michael Parsons and then hops back in. And they actually talk, there's like a director commentary thing that's on YouTube. And they talk about like the director thought it was amazing that Pacino gets knocked backwards, regroups, jumps back in his character and catches up, and she's laughing, and they just kind of keep the scene going. They decided to keep it.
If you watch it again too, there's a couple of points where you can see people notice it's Al Pacino. Right. I think they pretty much just like ripped and run that scene. And so I love that.
What do you got for most rewatchable scene, Wes?
I've got a couple that I think you left off that I thought were pretty important. Obviously, the aforementioned on the bed with the cigarette, pissy drunk, calls his ex-wife, who's now has a live-in partner. Yep. He says,
"Who is his partner?
Who was his partner? Did I wake you? I think I got appendicitis." I think I got appendicitis is just a great line. The scene where they're in the police station walking down and he's bitching about his ex-wife within earshot of this same dude.
Oh, yeah.
And that culminates into this huge fight, which I absolutely love.
That's at the detectives party. That's like the party for like the guys.
Yeah, I should have put that in. You're right, Wes. I like a good detectives party is always good with some drunken. Also, when they brawl at a detective party, it's like somebody just like tripped quickly. Yeah. Everybody's just completely nonplussed that people are throwing punches.
What else do I got? The wedding scene, obviously the whole wedding scene. John Candy is just getting fucking bombed.
Oh, the Long
John
Island.
Goodman, excuse me. Yeah. The wedding scene.
So what do you have for most rewatchable? What's your number one?
For me, so this is, and I don't think this is in this, but again, this is my personal favorite scene is when he calls her up and he tells her not to wear the panties.
Yeah, at the
when
bodega.
they meet up in the middle of the night, and she's wearing a long coat in the convenience store, and she brushes up against him, and then sometimes she gets close, and he feels to see if the panties there, but it's gone, and like that scene just explains to you like this man, he's lost his fucking mind for this woman. And this is why. Like, he spontaneously called her. She obliges. She looks incredible. For me, that's the scene that I go back to because it just reminds you, like, why this guy is doing what he's doing.
So Waz likes when Pacino gets freaky. What do you got, Chris?
I'd like to get creative here, but it's the first sex scene. It's their first night going home from the convenience store after she finds him and he's like, yeah, that my mom wrote that poem. And then he throws her in the closet.
Yeah.
He jumps on top of her. Then she jumps on top of him. The whole thing.
I have that as well.
Good.
What's aged the best? I like seeing these cheesy late 80s New Yorker Yankee fans with like that era where everybody kind of looked vaguely like Don Mattingly's cousin or Mike Francesa. Or an extra in a Seinfeld episode. I really enjoyed that.
The guy who comes up to him at the end who's like, I had to bring my kid to meet Dave Winfield.
Right. Yeah, a Dave Winfield reference. That's another what's aged the best. Sam Jackson's 1980s cameo run we mentioned. I wrote down for what's aged the best, drunk cops calling their ex-wife. Never fails in a movie.
Never fails. Cops being drunkards, cops being womanizers. The Wire taught us that's universally true. Every department, every time, era that's ever existed.
I have Richard Jenkins being the same age for about 35 years. He's in this movie in 1989, and then 20 years later looks exactly the same. I don't know what happened to Richard. I don't know why he doesn't age. I don't understand that. And then I had for what's aged the best, John Spencer. He plays Lieutenant John Longo Jr.
Yeah, who has to listen to Pacino talking about strange trim.
Right. And
he's like, yeah, good point, Frank.
Dude, the quotes in this, it's just
John Longo
good.
Jr., he says that he's trying to hook up Pacino with his cousin or somebody. And it's like, she's got great tits, divorced, no kids, no cats. And Pacino walks away and Goodman goes, Lou's sister-in-law, she sounds great.
Sounds great.
What
else do you have for what's aged the best, Chris?
I have Al Pacino doing karate at the detective party, like where he's just like they're trying to give a speech, and Al Pacino's got like a fight club going to the side of this VFW hall.
Right.
I mentioned the Dave Winfield thing, and one of my favorite little bits. It's not a rewatchable scene, but it's definitely aged the best. Is Frank showing off his new loafers to all his coworkers? He's like, check this out, my new lady got these for me.
But that's the thing. Whenever you see a dude wearing something or something in his appearance being way off from what you knew of him before, you know there's a woman involved, right? Like that's like so beautiful.
Anyone's aged the best from you, Waz, or should we keep going?
I got a couple. The first being the record collecting. When she's like, yo, these things would be worth a fortune one day to my kid. Like, the record collecting business market culture is insane. Like, there are records that are worth like $2,000-$3,000. Like, it's crazy how, prescient they were about that truth. Even in 1989, records were like a dated sort of technology, and for them to mention that in the movie and that be a part of the plot of the movie on these old 45s, like I thought that was dope. And my second age the best, the actual killer blaming it on the Negroes. Turns out that still works, guys.
That's right. I had that in What's Aged the Worst.
I had that in What's Aged the Worst as well. Yeah.
That aged the best. It still works. You can still do that, folks. If you want to get away with something, just blame it on the darkies.
My only other What's Aged the Best, Bill, is Richard Price, New York dialogue.
Oh. Yeah. I like it.
Yep.
Kid Cudi Pursuit of Happiness Award for Best Needle Job. I don't know what that sax song is in the grocery store when he tells her to meet. It sounds like a Sade song, but
if the movie is named Sea of Love, it's got to be Sea of Love.
So for me, It was another one bites the dust at the wedding party.
at the wedding.
Because to me, it's
that's
like
good.
a play on the
better.
serial
All right,
killer
we'll go with
theme.
that.
You feel me? Like,
Yeah.
more people are dying.
Big Kahuna Burger Award for best use of food and drink. I like the fingerprinting the wine glasses was fun. Watching the wine glasses all of a sudden became super important. Den of Thieves Benihana Award, scene stealing location. It's just that New York City bars and just kind of the late 80s just feels very authentic. They did a good job with the location scouting.
Goes in
I really
there,
feel
he
like I
looks
was
up
in there.
what fucking Yankees or Mets game are we watching tonight?
Yeah.
What's the score? Yeah.
So for me, it was actually the restaurant with the speed dating.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
so loud. It's smoky. It's like super big. There's like a lot of energy in that place. Like that was really cool. I was like, I want to go to that fucking restaurant.
I love the shot of when Pacino gets out of the surveillance van and walks across, like, I think it's Columbus to get it, because you can see Lincoln Center in the background.
Yeah.
And it's just like a great, like, New York, like, my fucking juices are flowing. Time to go date 3 women.
That restaurant is called O'Neill's. I don't know if it still exists, but that's what it was called when they filmed. Chris, what do you got for Great Shot Gordo for the most cinematic shot?
I actually have the last shot of of them walking down the street and trying to reconcile, just because it feels so alive.
You like the camera panning back with the group of our 2 characters sinking into a group of people. It's one of your signature shots in your movies.
That's right.
My favorite shot is every single time the dudes are dry humping the mattress and then before the serial killer awesome pants to his ass first.
Can you ever explain why Rooker makes them do that?
Tough way to go. We have Rooker coming up because I'm giving him the Vincent Chase Award for, are we sure this character was actually good at his job?
Yeah.
So this killer, he just follows this girl he used to love on her dates and immediately kills who she's with. Like, you're getting caught, dude. Like, somebody is putting together this non-elaborate chessboard of moves of every time this woman goes on a date with this guy, he ends up brutally murdered, shot in the back of the head.
It probably he would have gotten caught faster if he wasn't being investigated by a guy who was blackout drunk every single night.
Right, true.
Dude, true. So that why to me it's like, Frank, is he really a good detective?
Well,
like,
he's the other one who could have won the Vincent Chase Award. Are we sure Frank was even a decent detective?
Dude, when he smudges the fingerprints on purpose, it's like you don't even bother to check.
Just check. This is my Stephen A. Smith. We're not dealing with Sherlock Holmes right here. You know, like
right. This ties in the Butch's Girlfriend Award for the weak link of the film. This is the problem with this movie is the Michael Rooker character. We meet him at the 15-minute mark. Briefly, he's telling a joke. He's just sitting at a table. You don't think anything of him. Then you meet him again at like the 45-minute mark when he blames the black person at the grocery store for the murders, basically. So it's like, okay, sort of memorable, but you know, there's a lot going on in this movie. It's not really registering. You know, he's a famous actor, so that's always a red flag in a movie like this. But then the reveal that he's the killer, I'm not sure the movie earns it. Ebert had a problem with this too, Chris.
There's also, it might have been even more convoluted, but I thought about it this time watching it, especially because John Goodman is John Goodman now. But there is a John Goodman twist that was there where it's like Goodman's cop is the one killing these guys.
Oh,
because he has the whole thing in the middle of the movie where all of a sudden he starts getting into the nightlife and going out and
I never did this before, Frankie.
Yeah. And like, it's like, you know, he really is insistent that they work together. So you could be like, maybe he's trying to derail the investigation in some way. I kind of was like the second time around, I was like, if you're going to do a remake, that would be an interesting twist to put on it.
I think it needed another Michael Rooker scene where he goes to the grocery store with them and he's like, I swear to God, it was this guy. And like just something to make him more distinct before he shows up at the end.
So upon watching it the second time or third time for me, honestly, it felt like the part about blaming it on the black kid was just to have just a little bit of it's possible that it's somebody else for Detective Frank, just so he could just have a little bit of like, it might be the black kid. There's no evidence for it.
But then we never see that plot again. They go to the grocery store and then it just kind of goes to the wayside. So that's probably the flaw of the movie. Ebert said the ending cheats by bringing a character in from left field at the last moment. The audience is not fairly treated. I walked out feeling the plot played fast and loose with the rules of whodunits. All right, what's aged the worst? Obviously, newspaper dating ads. When was the last time somebody put a newspaper dating ad? Now this would be what is this movie now, Waz? Is this just Tinder?
This is, to me, it's just Tinder. That's why, to me, it doesn't age badly. It's an alternative way of meeting people that isn't being social, right? Like going out to a bar, going to a friend's get together. It's this alternative way. And before we had the technology for Tinder, you took out ads in the Village Voice. Like, I thought that actually aged perfectly because of how it played out. Like when they're in the detective's office and they're calling the girls to set up the dates, which essentially is after you match, you sort of are in that phase of setting up a time to meet up. And John Goodman is like, my mother's name was Amber or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, that is so true to life to me as somebody who was recently single and doing this, completely debasing act of trying to meet people on the internet to date. It rang so true to me that they were doing the little small talk. What's your favorite color? What did your dad do for a living? Blah, 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 blah. So that they could set up the actual meetup. Like, to me, all of that felt like it aged gracefully. It's just a different mode of technology to get those same exact things done. Those awkward convos on the phone really reminded me of the stupid text that you do when you first match with somebody on a dating app.
Chris, what do you got for what's aged the worst?
I have men sleeping in deformed white t-shirts. It's not that I need guys to wear silk pajamas, but there's something truly grotesque about seeing
He's so disgusting.
Goodman and Pacino sleeping in these like distended fucking V-necks and just be like, Jesus Christ. I also have on it's kind of actually perfect as a detail, but it's like great divorced man interior design energy is Al Pacino's shower curtain is just two cartoon alligators.
Yeah. It's the worst shit. It's like, it makes no sense why that would be a shower curtain.
But it's also just like the second Ellen Barkin would have saw that, she would have just been like, what the fuck is this guy doing?
Speaking of Pacino, I had her saying the words to her how old was that kid? 4 years old?
Yeah.
This is your new stepfather, Lieutenant Frank Keller. That is the worst. Pacino's yellow HD teeth are pretty rough. Maybe it's a couple Crest Wedge strips for him. And then in the morning, she goes right in for some open mouth kissing with Pacino after their night together. I would have been worried about it.
There's not a
previous night.
A tube of Crest in sight.
Yeah, honestly, like, whoa, you really like that guy if you're doing that. I also had they go to the grocery store and Pacino says, "Do one of your kids got cornrows, afro hair?" That's tough. Maybe they could have a consultant. Afro hair was tough.
Again, there's too many great quotes. There's just too many great quotes, but he called it Stevie Wonder hair.
You're right.
He called it Stevie Wonder hair.
As far as what's aged the worst too, because like it would have been different now, is you would have just been able to quickly Google image Phil Rizzuto and realize something was going wrong.
Yeah, true. In the Yankee thing. I had I almost did this for my hottest take. I just don't think "See You Love's" a very good song.
Whoa.
Yeah,
really?
Not a huge fan.
I think it's beautiful.
Wow. Never been a giant fan. I think there are some other 60s or 50s songs that maybe could have been more interesting. I just don't like hearing it 5 times, but it's fine. I'm not like, oh my God, I hate this song, but I don't know. I don't love it. Where do you stand, Waz?
I can't lie to you guys. This is not something that played in my house growing up. First time I heard this song was the first time I watched this movie. I'm like, okay, this is cool. Regular, I could see 1950s, drive-in movie. That's what the song evokes for me, but I'm not that impressed by it.
I have one more would stage the worst, but Waz, you have any before I do it?
The slut shaming towards the end of the movie where he's like, how many of those dates did you go on? It's just what are we doing, Al Pacino? Like, look at your life. Look at you.
Yeah,
You're a
you
drunk.
Hit the lottery. You suck.
You're a divorcee and you're because I went on some dates. Like it's just, but then again, like, is it aging horribly when men are still doing this type of nonsense in 2023? But I would imagine in 1989, people watching that movie being like, yeah, why is she dating all those dudes?
Yeah. You tell her, Al. So the number one what's aged the worst for me, and it's on YouTube. I sent you the deleted scenes. There's 2 deleted scenes. There's a scene when he's kind of staking out the building and he sees somebody who seems like a suspect, but it turns out the guy's a bodyguard for a kid in elementary school, but the guns are drawn and it becomes this whole event. And then he goes the next thing in the police station and his ex-wife is there and she's
Denise,
coming in and check
right?
on him, shared about the thing. And she's played by Lorraine Bracco, AKA Mrs. Henry Hill from Goodfellas and Dr. Janice Melfi. And they have a really good 3-minute scene.
And it's also Pacino's real life girlfriend, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
at
he's
some
dating
point,
her at the time.
Yeah, I think he was. And I have
Shouts
no
to Al.
idea why they cut it out. I actually thought it was really good to meet his ex-wife. She tells, at the end of the scene, she tells him, I'm pregnant, and he hugs her. And I don't know. I thought it added some depth to the movie, and I don't get it. I would have kept it.
That might be some bias, some Goodfellas Sopranos bias, Bill, because you love that actress
I
so
do
much,
like her.
and you have so many great memories tied to her presence on screen that you're just like, that scene works perfectly. We need more.
Yeah,
of
it
her.
might be. I just liked putting a face with the ex-wife, but it's fine. Was there a better title for the movie? Probably not.
I have Lonely Hearts. You know, because like they usually call the singles ad something like that.
Sea of Love
That's
is a
solid.
boring title, I gotta say. I think they could have done a lot better.
You know, because your video's not turned on, Craig. It just sounds like Statler and
It's coming to
Waldorf.
the top rope. I like it though. It's keeping me on my toes.
It's like when Bill texts me, he's like, "We're doing Sea of Love." I'm like, "What is this?" But then I just,
That's fair though.
but it doesn't reflect the movie to me.
It's
I don't
such an
know.
Yeah.
indictment on the rewatchables that's Craig's reaction.
That's not the only time Craig was like, what is this? Waz, do you have a hottest take?
I really don't. Like, so many things on this movie just absolutely work for me. Every single part of it just works for me. So there was nothing that I'm like, well, actually this. Well, I
All
don't
right, I got a good one.
have a hot
I'll
take.
carry
I
you
just
with this one.
love it.
My Stephen A. Smith hottest take. It's an absolute outrage looking back that Ellen Barkin did not have like an 8-episode run on The Sopranos playing somebody. I just don't know how she wasn't on the show. Could she have been a Tony mistress? Could she have been a rival mob boss that Tony couldn't believe there was like a female mob boss? Could it have been she's a madam, like a Heidi Fleiss character? Could it have been Carmela's sister who shows up for holidays and then starts coming on to Tony one night? And
Super
stuff happens, and
judgmental,
it's like
but really into him. Yeah.
And it's like a 5-episode arc. Could she have played Carmelo
I
instead of
was
Edie
just gonna
Falco?
ask, what do you think? I know that's sacrilegious.
Let's talk it out.
Wow.
If she's
I don't
Carmela,
know. Wow.
where does the show go if she's Carmela Soprano? I think she probably has too much sexual energy for
It's hard to
the
imagine
wife.
Ellen Barkin doing the more like pedestrian,
Like making
even-
chicken parm.
but just
and-
like even like the beautiful scene where Carmela's in Paris or whatever. You know what I mean? Like Ellen Barkin it almost seems as beautiful as Paris, so it's hard to imagine her doing that. I don't know.
trying to seduce Father Phil and not pulling it off. Like Ellen Barkin's fucking getting Father Phil.
Yeah, that's just,
Wasn't that his name?
There's just no way. So,
Yeah.
so to me, the reason why it's hard for me to see her replacing Carmelo, it's when she tears into Tony. Like,
Yeah.
when Ellen Barkin tears into Al Pacino for the myriad of bullshit that he does in this movie, she's kind of taking it light on him. Whereas Edie Falco in those scenes where she is just lighting into Tony Soprano, like it's nothing like that. She makes that dude look small in some of those scenes. I don't know if Ellen Barkin has that rage.
What if she was the
Falco does.
Juliana Margulies character? The car salesman person that Tony had the affair
Oh,
with
yeah.
and then had to take her for a little ride with one of his cronies.
Or yeah, the side piece that committed suicide. I like that.
Oh, yeah,
I like
Annabelle
that as an
too. Yeah.
idea
Sure.
too. Yeah.
All right. Casting what ifs. Dustin Hoffman was supposed to
big
be
deal.
in this movie. Yeah, and something
only-
weird happened and
The only
Pacino
thing that
fell
would
into
have
it.
been more perverted is if Dustin Hoffman had played
Yeah.
Frank. Watching Dustin Hoffman get domed by Ellen Barkin.
right out of Rain Man too. It would have been like the next movie after Rain Man. Too weird.
I don't think I could handle that.
If it was Raymond Babbitt meeting her, maybe, I don't know. I could talk myself into it.
Have to leave the date. Have to watch Wapner.
We mentioned Lorraine Bracco. That's the only other casting would have. The Ruffalo Hannah Rubinek Partridge overacting award.
It's Al.
It's always Pacino.
Listen, can I make a small case for the discount mafia shoe store guys?
Oh, sure.
Yes,
and you can make a case for Rooker, but it's definitely Al.
It's not the mafia guys who are like, all right, so how do I play a mafia guy? Can you guys watch this Andrew Dice Clay comedy special and then basically just do Dice Clay? Can that be the move?
Hawking the loogie. I know he thought he was doing something, especially like being in the scene with Al Pacino. It's like he probably worked himself up into it like a tizzy, and that was unconvincing.
Best That Guy award. So Pacino's dad is one of those.
William Hickey. Yeah,
he's that guy.
That's also a really funny scene is when they're just getting fucking hammered in front of his dad.
Oh yeah, but
he unlocks the poem for them.
Yeah. Well, one of the other guys in that scene wins this award. His name is Larry Joshua.
It sure is.
You know him better as obnoxious Yankee fan at the bar during the For Love of the Game perfect game. The guy who's sitting next to Kelly Preston and talking out of his ass at the airport bar. That's how I know him. Do you know him from somewhere else, CR?
I mean, he's such a huge.
He's one of those guys. He's like one of those New Yorker 80s, 90s guys. Waz isn't a For Love of the Game guy. He just made a confused face.
No, never seen For Love of the Game. Yeah. Sorry, folks.
Dion Waiters Award. Who do you have? Michael Rooker? John Spencer? Has Lieutenant John Longo Jr.?
It's Goodman's probably John Spencer, but I like the old chick at the restaurant on the speed date with Pacino.
Oh, she was really good. Yeah, that's a good one.
She's so good at playing a certain level of desperation and loneliness and wanting. And when she realizes, she knew he was full of shit. When she sees the hot ass younger chick pull up to the date and the eye contact they made, and she is just devastated, and Pacino was just like, fuck.
Right.
That was messed up. She's another candidate for me.
Recasting couch. Who is the 2024 version of the Pacino part? Who do you got, CR? John Hamm? We giving him one more chance?
It's Oscar Isaac I feel like for me. It's always Oscar Isaac.
Oscar Isaac.
Talking about Pacino.
Really
it's he reminds me of Pacino more than anybody of our current flock of actors. To me, Oscar Isaac, I could see doing this in his fucking sleep because we just watched Marriage Story.
I think based on early Billions too, I go for Giamatti. Giamatti getting thrown up against the wall.
Half-Assed Internet Research. Harold Becker replaced Gregory Hoblet as the director. Harold Becker did some good stuff over the years, but he came in late. And then it was inspired by Price wrote a 1978 novel called The Ladies' Man and then kind of refashioned it into different things.
Can I give you a little bit of intel on this?
Yeah.
So Richard Price writes a couple of these novels in the beginning of his career. Ladies' Man, The Breaks, they're kind of like coming of age books. He wrote this book called Blood Brothers, which is like about New York gangs. It's really good. Ladies' Man was based on an assignment he got from Penthouse. And the reason why I wanted to tell you about this, Bill, is I know that as the unofficial mayor of the combat zone, I thought you might get off on some of the place names here. So this is what he said about Ladies' Man. Came out of an assignment from Penthouse. They wanted a series of 3 articles about public places in which you can go and either participate in or observe actual sex. At the time, I had never been to any of these places, not even a singles bar. So he goes to a singles retreat in the Catskills. And then an old friend of mine took me to a bunch of gay bars like the Anvil, the Toilet, the Ramp, the Strap, the Stirrup, and our very own Eagle's Nest, Bill.
The Eagle's Nest is back.
Yeah, so just it all comes full circle back to cruising.
Wow, look at Richard Price, man. On the ground.
Doing the work, yeah.
Doing the work.
Shoe leather reporting.
Apex Mountain, Pacino, no. Ellen Barkin? It's either this or Big Easy, right?
I think it's this era. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's probably this.
88,
especially like the
89,
way
yeah.
Ebert wrote about her. Yeah, I would say yes. John Goodman hasn't happened yet. I don't know. That's coming later. Probably Roseanne crossed with Big Lebowski. Phone ad dating murder movies. This is probably the
phone ad
apex,
dating,
right?
This is the apex for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. The song "Sea of Love" probably didn't get any better. I think
I think
played
Sea
6
of Love
times.
was like a massive hit when it was out. I think it was like the
Carries
slow
on
dance.
for
six,
number
7
3 on
years.
Netflix. Is it number 1 for this?
I think
Yeah.
it had a bigger cultural impact.
Pacino character's named Frank. So we got Colonel Frank Slade from Son of a Woman.
I think that's the apex mountain.
We have
for it.
Frank Serpico, and we have Frank Keller. So how would you rank those, CR?
I think I'd go Slade, Serpico, Keller, with all due respect.
Yeah, I mean, he won the Oscar for that.
Yeah, I did wonder if Serpico was number 1. But yeah, I think you're right. He won the Oscar for Frank Slade. Late 80s Yankee fans, I'm going to say yes. Michael Rooker, I don't know what it is, but it's not this. It might be Cliffhanger, him taking it personally that Sly Stallone tried to save his girlfriend without a safety harness, which I'm still trying to figure that out. Yeah, and then that's all I got. All right, picking nits. So, would Ellen Barkin's character really recover from Frank flipping out
No.
and locking her in a closet? I feel like that's the end of the date.
It's like he gets 9 strikes in this at bat.
It's the end of the date.
He shows up
Waz.
trashed to her apartment where her daughter is sleeping.
Yeah.
He like tries to like ask her to live with him, but like gets bombed there. He throws her in a closet. He's like lies about what he does. He almost starts a fight in her place of business. It's crazy.
Okay. There's all of that stuff. And then there's when I met you, you were a cop
Right.
investigating a serial killer.
Yes.
And didn't
who
tell
you
me.
thought I was, and then fucked me. Okay?
Right.
You thought I was a serial killer and still fucked me. I don't know which one is worse, bro. That you once thought that I was a serial killer, or that you were willing to fuck serial killers. Like, what? No. I can't. Sir, I'm sorry. We cannot date. I'm sorry. We sorry.
Also, it's Ellen Barkin. She could have done a lot better.
Yeah,
than Ellen.
there's some hedge
that
fund
part,
guy in the
too?
late 80s she could have met. Yeah, I think locked in the closet's probably a deal breaker, but you guys just listed 7 more.
She
that
could
probably
have
ended it.
started dating Kiki Vandaway. You know, like
Right. Kiki Vandaway. Oh man. Yeah, I'd pick it. It's Frank revealing that he was on a job when they met was absurd. What'd you got, Wes?
Frank's still being forced to work with the dude who's now porking his wife.
forced. It
That
seems
seems-
like he loves it. He's like,
It
gotta be.
seems, it seems like they could have found a way to separate those two homies. Like,
Yeah, maybe put him in a
feels
one different. Yeah, put him
give
in
the guy another
76
person
instead of
to
73.
do work with. Yeah.
Yeah. If they got married, her name would be Helen Keller, and I don't know if that was intentional or not, but I probably would have brought it up in the writer's room. Maybe we call him Frank Kelly. No, the Helen Keller thing's just too weird. Or bring it up in the movie and be like, hey, if we got married, I'd be Helen
Yeah,
Keller.
how hilarious. Yeah.
But hold on, just a quick question though.
Yeah.
This is a New York City guy. What is the last name Keller supposed to be like ethnically, as an ethnic white? Like,
Well,
is
it
that
sounds
supposed
like
to be
Scottish?
I think just like German Irish kind of.
Yeah, or German or
But-
something like
yeah.
that.
Okay.
So, another pick a nit. How did Michael Rooker's character know every time she was going on a date?
He was probably following her around in
Just
his little
following
cable
her.
van. Yeah.
That's
following
a
him.
harder thing to do in New York City. What is so just every night? It's like, what are you doing tonight? I'm gonna go. That girl I dated for a while. I'm just gonna go stand in the sidewalk
But,
across
Bill,
from her building.
She works at a shoe store that opens and closes at the same time every single day.
Yeah.
So he knows when he needs to go see her after
She never
work. He could
notices him, not once. She's like, "Hey, that's that guy I dated. Why is he outside my building again?"
And
Does
people
he-
wonder why getting their cable serviced in New York City is so problematic. It's just like these guys don't have their eye on the ball.
Yeah, true. It's a good point. That's all I got for picking nits.
I have one, which is sort of also an unanswerable question. Is just like, what are the legal precedents for the Yankees brunch? Like, We're currently watching Donald Trump just like kind of like sail through multiple federal trials.
Yeah.
But like they can just give like a group warrant serving at a Yankees brunch. Like that's not entrapment at all.
And then immediately pour shots to celebrate Frank's 20th anniversary as all the convicts are in the room. That part's pretty weird.
It was the
I liked
80s,
it, though.
man. It was before Giuliani, man. You could do certain type of things when
That's
you was the
right.
police.
That's right.
So sequel, prequel, prestige TV, all black cast or untouchable. I'm adding the rarely seen. I think there's only a couple times we've ever even suggested this as a possibility, but remake would be pretty interesting with Tinder instead of the newspaper dates.
Yeah.
And just put in this movie in 2024.
I just have it written down app of love.
Mm.
Oh.
I love that.
And it's just like they're trying to find a serial killer using like dating apps.
Plus
So
that
to
could
me,
be an
it's-
Olivia Rodrigo song. Like I think there's a lot of tie-ins.
It's app of love with the serial killer element, but for me, it's basically the first season of Homeland. But the chick's a serial killer. You feel me? Like Brody was
Yeah.
a terrorist, and it's
Right.
like, wait, is she really fucking a terrorist
Right.
as a CIA agent? It's the same. It's basically the exact same thing. It's a cop chasing a serial killer and fucking him the whole time. And it's like the tension, like, are they really the killer? Are they actually falling in love? Like to me, it's just Homeland all over again. Sign me up for that.
Or call it Swipe Dead. Swipe.
It's good.
Swipe. Last swipe.
That's good.
Also, make it
Last
all
Swipe's
black.
good.
Just make it all black. Just don't let Michael B. Jordan be the lead. He's the black Misha Barton. We don't need it. But make it all black though. We can do it.
All black cast would be good. All black cast with Tinder instead of newspaper ads. And no Michael B. Jordan. So Michael B. Jordan's out.
Yeah.
What's
So
spurred
in
on
my
your Michael B.
Homeland-
Jordan shots? I don't know.
He's terrible. He's awful. He's awful. He's a great looking guy. I'm happy for his success. He's a terrible actor. There's no way around it. And he's been bad for a while. He almost ruined Friday Night Lights. Go back and watch The Wire. It's terrible Wallace. Just horrible Wallace.
Wow.
Have you seen? Have you
Does he
seen?
owe you money?
have you-
What happened?
No. It's not no nothing. It's
My
just,
pants
you
are
know
on
what?
fire.
You know what? It's funny you should say, does he owe me money? It's one of those things where, like, you know, I talk to a lot of black people. Like, you would think that, like, Michael B. Jordan was, I don't even know, like Wesley Snipes or something. He's not. He's just not. He's bad. He's actively
we
bad.
may have to bring back the hottest take just to get Waz's
This is
Michael B. Jordan
unbelievable.
stuff.
I mean, this is why the hottest take was so great. I gotta say, I thought he was bad in that movie. What was it called? Just Mercy. When he
Oh
was the
my
lawyer.
goodness.
It was a little miscast in that one. But I'm
Also,
pro MBJ.
I don't know
for the most
how
part.
did we manage to redo this movie, TV show, and not mention Sydney Sweeney, Bill? How did that happen?
in the recasting couch?
Because I think the cops have become knocking down Bill's door. There's a SWAT team. You need somebody who's like a little older. I think you need somebody who's got
It's Sydney
like
Sweeney 8
a
years
single
from now.
mother kind of situation.
Some failed movies away. Just one Oscar. Who gets it?
I think Richard Price for screenplay. I just love the dialogue in this movie.
Is this movie better with Wayne Jenkins, Danny Trejo, Catherine Hahn, Steve Buscemi, Sam Jackson, J.T. Walsh, Byron Mayo, or Philip Baker Hall? Byron Mayo is a pretty interesting addition to this.
I know
maybe.
that there is probably a feeling like that this would fit Wayne Jenkins great because it's a cop situation. But if Robert Loggia had played Al Pacino's dad, and it was Byron Mayo, and he was like, "Frank, Alan, don't fight. I'm right here. We got a single-sized bed over here. We got some Johnsons and Johnsons. We're just gonna get in there. We're gonna figure it out. What's mine is yours."
It just throws up in a garbage can. Yeah, we needed Byron Mayo in that. I'm with you. Probably unanswerable questions. So I actually counted how many cigarettes Pacino smoked in this movie.
Oh my
I think my
God.
count was accurate. It was 12. Just 12 on-camera cigarettes over the course of, 100 minutes. It felt like more. I probably would have guessed like 18, 19. I might have missed one or two because I was taking notes. But any unanswerable questions for you guys?
What's Helen's mom's take on this whole situation?
Oh my god.
Yeah. You had a feeling Helen's mom has seen some things
Yeah.
where she's like, well, at least he has a job.
That's
that
right.
she'd kind of
He's
reached
got
that
good
level.
benefits. He's
Yeah.
got a stable pension.
Oh, he's got health care. Yeah, that was pretty rough. Anything from you, Was?
Will this marriage last longer than the wedding? Because he mentioned his previous marriage didn't last as long, and I'm just like, this. How quickly does this thing end? Like, how fast does this just burn up in smoke?
So I had that in the Andy and Red Zwane Award for what happened the next day. I was going to ask you guys, how many months does this go? I'm going to say less than 4, right? And he's definitely drinking again. He's like, I'm 7 weeks sober.
Oh, I know.
Like, that's definitely not lasting.
He's going around patting himself on the back. He's just like, by the way, I haven't had any double doers.
Club soda and lime. That's going to last till maybe February. I think 4 months or less would be my guess. Right?
I think so. I think that's the over.
What piece of memorabilia would you want from this movie? So having the actual Sea of Love record that she plays in the thing, I think
which
that
you
would
think
be
is an
cool.
overrated piece of pop.
Well, just it's or the red jacket, maybe the Ellen Barkin red jacket.
I would go for Pacino's loafers.
That's a good one.
That's a good one. Pacino's sunglasses that he wears into the office the night after the dates, which is like the sunglass trick because I'm severely hungover and got 0 sleep last night. Very great glasses, but just like, come on, like you're wearing glasses indoors. We know what you did last night.
Coach Finstock Award, best life lesson. I think Waz hit it. If you had sex with somebody who admitted after that he was on a job and thought you might have been a serial killer, but he had sex with you anyway, might be time to call that one quits. That might be it.
Yeah.
Might be time. Good luck. Godspeed. Let's have a handshake and a hug.
I think if there's any relationship you're in where someone close to you says, are we going to dust your dick for prints? You probably strayed down the wrong path in the woods, you know?
Did we talk about Goodman enough in this pod? Because we're almost done. I thought Goodman was a great sidekick in this because we've seen the kind of jolly, fat cop sidekick over and over again in movies. We even see it in Basic Instinct a couple years later with George Zunza. But I thought Goodman was really good in this movie.
I really enjoy Pacino and Goodman when they go brace the guy in front of his whole family for leaving the ads.
Right. Well,
so are we not going to talk about some of the best quotes from this movie? Sorry, Bill, I didn't mean to step on you like that because there's just too many one-liners
give
in
this
this movie. Oh, I love it. It's horse shit, but I love it. Oh my God. I'm the The arresting officer was the fucking doer. It's a joke.
I think also come the wet ass hour, I'm everybody's daddy is really the number 1 draft pick.
And then you're killing me. There's a Goodman Pacino buddy cop movie that never happened in the late 80s, early 90s that we get a taste of, but I think I would have enjoyed. Who won the movie for you, Wes?
I mean, I've never been more clear on a winner in my life. It's Ellen Barkin. She is this movie for me. She's the center of it. She's the soul. She's the sex. She's the everything, the passion. And I like that she doesn't play at one note. Like for me, it's always about the changing of the speeds. And you know, when you see her with her mother, the way she talks about her kid, when she's like, Frank, you want me to move in? Like, I come with a kid. Like, this would mean a family. Like, this isn't the type of thing you just gloss over. I just love how she plays this character in such a 360 degree manner. So for me, she wins the movie by far.
I have that as well. Okay. All right, let's bring in producer Craig.
2 thumbs up. Really enjoyed it. I really agree with you about Goodman. I think he really brightens up this movie. I kind of have a hard time believing that Pacino has chemistry with anybody, like especially women, but even men. And Goodman managed to kind of work with him. The physical contrast is great. Goodman is just like a giant. There's a scene where they hug and at the end, and you're like, God, he is like 180 pounds heavier than Al Pacino.
Yeah.
So I thought that was awesome. I just like the way they meet is hilarious. Goodman meets Frank one time. And in that meeting, Frank gets hammered and fights his ex-wife's husband.
Yeah.
And the next time Goodman's character sees Frank, he goes, "You want to come to my daughter's wedding?"
I know.
Sunday.
You like weddings?
Just I
Maybe
don't
he
know.
wanted to liven it up.
Having gotten married recently, I'm just like
He's also like, do you want to dance with some bridesmaids?
Right.
just doling out a wedding invite like that is hilarious. But in general, sex with the possibility of murder is probably the most compelling thing you can watch.
so electric.
I think maybe
It's the
you
highest
need to do
stakes.
it. You need
The
sex
most
murder
dangerous
month.
game.
The most dangerous.
Sex Murder Month. I feel like we've done a few of them now.
guess we have.
I think it was just bad planning by me because we could have done Body Heat. We could have done this. Could have done Jagged
Also,
Edge.
You want to talk about like a spinoff series or something they could revive? The undercover cop restaurant setup thing where they're like in the kitchen and they're
serving the drinks.
The
So
waiter,
good.
like Goodman's the waiter one day, Pacino's the waiter the other day. That is the most electric setup.
She's still at the bar, so she gets her feelings hurt. Oh
That
my
is
God.
a whole world you could build around. That is an amazing idea. I've never seen that.
So scripted series, Craig's thinking.
Yeah. Oh, I think it's a cool, like an undercover cop restaurant or something.
Maybe
It's an
this should
amazing
be
idea.
what the third season of The Bear is about. Is that there's an undercover cop in the kitchen.
I love it.
Craig,
Cousin.
did you think she was the killer?
No. I don't know why. I thought it'd be too easy. They were setting you up to think it the whole time. Also, the most recent sex murder comedy we did was So I Married an Axe Murderer, and she wasn't the killer. And so I was like,
yeah.
And I was like, there's definitely, I was trying to figure out who it would be. I didn't see Rooker coming though.
I can't believe we didn't mention that. We just did that like, 2 months ago? And that was another one of like, the sex is great, but this person also might be a murderer.
This movie also really builds the New York world really well. You get so familiar with it because the whole movie is basically just like these 4 locations that you just cycle between. It's like restaurant, police station, bar, apartment. And you're just kind of going around and around, and you really get familiar and you feel like you kind of like know the world they're in. So I really liked it. That was great.
Yeah, I hate to sound like the old guy, but New York in the late 80s, early 90s was just more simple. And I thought the movie reflected that. New York is like super complicated. They blew out a whole bunch of different regions of it, and it's just so big and vast. But this was kind of the New York that I remember experiencing in a lot of ways. When anytime we went to go there and went out, and then it just kind of blew out.
So, Billy, you just reminded me of what one of my hot takes was, just internally, not that I was going to use, but you're reminding me now. It's just like, bring back crime in New York so we can get this New York back.
You missed the old New York.
Bring back the dystopia.
But we
Bring
gotta let
back this
dystopia go for a
42nd
little
Street.
while longer, though, because we gotta get working people living on the Upper West Side again. That's the thing, is that Al Pacino and Ellen Barkin live up in the 80s on the
Upper
West
85th
Side.
and 88th.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, but that was the thing. All the movies that were set in the 70s and 80s, that was the New York I knew because they were only in like the same 3 locations. Now you have 40 locations. I mean, it's better now because it's way bigger. There's more place to live. But just from like as a movie fan watching New York, there's a familiarity with all the locations that I'm just like, oh, I get this. I've been here in different places.
Is there a city right now, a 2023 city, where you're like, oh, it's really peaking right now in movies? Like this city is a great movie city, the 2023 version? Or are they all
because
kind of dead?
they do so much. We're shooting it in
Just do a bunch
Atlanta
of
or
shit.
New Orleans
Yeah.
or Vancouver for whatever
It's so
city they're doing.
nasty when they use a Canadian city as a stand-in for New York. It's just disgusting.
They
I'm
try
like,
to do
come
some.
on,
There's
man.
been some Boston that they've pulled off a couple times, but not steadily.
Waz, did you know that they shot the interiors for Sea of Love in Toronto, which makes sense because ain't no way those
Is that
apartments are
true?
way too big. Yeah, the apartments are.
I
yeah,
did not know that. Wow.
yeah.